Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to cover two more spooky stories from the classic horror anthology, Tales from the Darkside. As with all my videos, I'll recap the stories first, then share some fun behind-the-scenes facts at the end of each story. And as I always say, it's best to watch these episodes in full, as originally intended, before watching any of my videos. I'll have links down in the description so you can pick up the series for yourself. But with all that out of the way, let's get into some spooky stories. Our first story is titled The Impressionist, from Season 2, Episode 1, originally airing on September 26, 1985. The story starts right in the middle of a stand-up act by Spiffy Remo. Mid-joke, he notices a man in the audience, smoking and staring at him with cold and dark eyes. Something about the glare throws Spiffy off his game. He cuts his act short, wishes everyone a polite goodnight, and rushes off the stage. Back in the dressing room, Spiffy talks with the club owner, a man named Pudgy, who points out that the act was a little off tonight, and, with a raised eyebrow, mentions that Spiffy hasn't changed his material in over 10 years, saying that lately there's been more groans than laughs. Spiffy shrugs it off, claiming it's perfect and that people just don't understand him anymore, like the world's moving on without him. He begins to tell Pudgy about the smoking man when Pudgy interrupts, saying that he didn't see anyone. Spiffy describes the man, saying he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt with eyes so cold his thumbs started itching. Pudgy chuckles and asks about the itchy thumbs. Spiffy explains that whenever he gets nervous, his thumbs itch. Pudgy starts to leave, telling Spiffy to change his act. Spiffy asks for more money. A small argument happens, and as Spiffy heads to the door, the man with cold eyes walks into his path. The man flashes a badge, saying he's with the government, while slightly twitching. He needs Spiffy's help on a top-secret matter. Payment will be generous, but he says that they must leave immediately. No talking to anyone. Spiffy jokes, asking if he can use his own blindfold or the government-issued one, as he pulls a handkerchief from his pocket. The agent produces a black bag, saying he'll need to use the government issue. They arrive at the secret facility. They walk down a hallway as Spiffy continues to button up his jumpsuit. An eerie, otherworldly scream pierces the silence. Spiffy freezes, looking back at the agent. He asks what that sound was, but the agent opens a door without answering, ushering him inside. Scientists hover over computer monitors, and there, Spiffy meets Dr. Ko, who reminds him of the document he signed swearing him to secrecy. Spiffy raises his hand mockingly, like giving a sworn statement. Ko sits him down and explains that in the age of movies and comics, what he's about to learn shouldn't come as too much of a shock. He goes on to explain that a few days ago, an alien spaceship landed on Earth, knowing little about the alien, and not knowing enough to replicate its nuclear fusion engine themselves. The creature was named Hofgosh by Ko and the other scientists. They then show a video of a failed communication attempt, stating that the best method so far has been to mimic its movements. Ko slips up, and Spiffy immediately calls it out. The alien reacts with a smack to Ko's face, almost as if it's offended. Ko says that's why they need Spiffy, explaining that his impersonation skills are unparalleled. Spiffy balks at the idea of being alone in a room with the creature, to which Ko emphasizes that the ship runs on nuclear fusion, and the alien could give them answers humanity desperately needs. Spiffy responds again with a firm no. Ko tries persuasion, saying that understanding the alien could elevate humanity to the next stage and beyond. Spiffy pats him on the shoulder, saying to tell Uncle Sam he's gonna pass on this one. The agent re-enters, telling the scientist to leave before handing Spiffy a folder. The agent mentions serious charges from Spiffy's army days, to which Spiffy grabs the papers, noting that the charges are old and dropped long ago. The agent smirks, saying that new evidence could be found and used to reopen the case, costing Spiffy years of his life and ruining his reputation. Or he can spend some time with the alien and get the answers the scientists need. Spiffy reluctantly agrees. Ko fits him with a device that translates the alien's language to English and vice versa. Ko reminds him that body language is key, to which Spiffy jokes that after weeks of studying, He could almost speak Hofgosh himself. The agent opens the door and tells him, "Prove it." Inside the room, the alien jumps on the table, terrified as the door closes. They seem to size each other up before Spiffy reassures the alien that he's a friend. He attempts to mimic its movements, guiding it towards the computer. Everything seems fine until Spiffy stands upright to look at the scientist through the one-way mirror. The alien notices the shift in stance and grabs his arm. Two scientists burst in, using a sonic device to separate them. Back in the lab, Co asks Spiffy why he stood and broke contact. Spiffy admits that he panicked, saying he just needs to get his bearings before he returns to the room. Spiffy then spends the next few weeks studying the conversation logs and practices mimicking the alien's movements, going in and out with repeated short visits. But something new happens. The creature stops responding. Frustrated, Spiffy returns to the lab. The agent declares Spiffy hopeless and kicks him out of the project. Co agrees, and Spiffy snaps, declaring that he'll get it. The agent warns that it's too late, but Spiffy rushes back, and he tosses the translator aside, relying purely on his knowledge of the alien's language and movements. The alien responds, touching Spiffy's hand, leaving Co and the others dumbfounded. A bright light streams from the computer, outputting nuclear fusion codes. Spiffy stares in awe before the alien shoots a bright beam from its head, and suddenly, he's back at the comedy club. Spiffy sits backstage after the show, where the crowd is thrilled and even Pudgy concedes that he was wrong, agreeing to a raise. Spiffy stands up and declares that the show isn't working for him anymore, refusing Pudgy's offer for more money. He shakes his head and tells him it's over, before leaving the comedy club. Later, as Spiffy walks alone in the dark, a spaceship lands in a park across the street. Hofgosh steps out and Spiffy smiles at his alien friend. They talk in Hofgosh's native language, and though it is not stated, the alien invites his human friend back to his home planet. After a brief consideration, Spiffy nods in agreement, and they walk hand in hand towards the ship as the screen fades to black. When it comes to The Impressionist, maximum for minimal was the key to producing this episode. Rather than spending money on creature effects or big shock moments, the story leans heavily into psychological unease. That was very deliberate. Tales from the Darkside often saved money on its quieter episodes, so it could go bigger on monster-heavy ones later in the season. But somehow it still works. Even with the film crew referring to Hofgosh as the walking bad idea, everyone agreed the concept was disturbing. No one could quite explain why it worked. It just did. Hofgosh was played by actor Claudia Templeton, who was permanently hunched over while inside the suit due to its small size. Ironically, those restricted movements made the alien's motions feel more believable and far more unsettling on screen. Spiffy Remo was played by Chuck McCann, whose voice is most famously recognized from DuckTales, where he voiced Duckworth. The props on Tales from the Darkside were notoriously low budget, and this episode is no exception. The spaceship was actually a U-Haul truck covered in rigging and black cloth, with bright stage lights bolted directly through it. Even the ramp the characters walk up is just the moving truck's loading ramp. It was actually the very truck used to haul the rigging and lights to the set to begin with. And yet, despite all of those limitations, the idea is completely sold to the audience. The result is an episode that's spooky, strange, and ultimately, surprisingly heartfelt. Our next story is titled The Word Processor of the Gods from Season 1, Episode 8, originally airing on November 25th, 1984. The story starts off in a messy, cluttered kitchen. A woman named Lena sits drinking cola while listening to the radio. There's a knock at the door, but Lena refuses to get up and answer it. Suddenly, the door swings open to reveal Rich Hagstrom carrying a big box, followed closely by his neighbor, Mr. Nordhoff, who informs Rich that he has a few more boxes in the back. Rich tries to get his son Seth to help, but Lena stops him, saying the boy's busy practicing. When Rich goes upstairs, Seth is screeching away on the guitar, insisting he's too busy to help. Rich comes back downstairs and decides he'll get the boxes himself. He offers Mr. Nordhoff a glass of water before heading out. Lena asks what's in the boxes. Nordhoff explains it's a word processor, something Rich's nephew built before he died. Lena seems completely unconcerned, complaining that everyone on that side of the family is dead and how they are the only living relatives. She moans about not receiving any inheritance and having to pay out of pocket for a triple burial. Nordhoff, embarrassed for Rich, offers sympathy. Lena continues to insult the dead, calling Rich's brother Jonathan a drunk. Nordhoff, clearly offended, defends Jonathan and the family, insisting Jonathan was a good man. Lena sarcastically replies that it did him a lot of good. Nordhoff starts recounting his last conversation with Jonathan Jr., saying the boy mentioned he was making a special word processor for Rich. He recalls that Jonathan seemed almost desperate to tell him, like he sensed something bad was coming. Lena mocks the gift, sarcastically joking that Rich will write the next great novel. Rich again opens the door himself, bringing in the last 2 boxes. As he sets them down, Lena sneers about making money with her nighttime activities, looks down her nose at Rich, says she's going to play bingo, and walks off. Nordhoff expresses condolences for Rich's loss, explaining the family were good neighbors. It's revealed that Jonathan went through dark times, got drunk, and drove his family off a cliff. Nordhoff says Jonathan was a good man, but the demons caught up with him, and he's sorry so many people suffered. Later, downstairs, Nordhoff asks if Rich is a writer. Rich says he published a book in the past but can't recapture that magic. Jonathan Jr. built the word processor, but Rich doubts it will work. He was only 15. Nordhoff assures him Jonathan Jr. is a genius and a master of electronics. Rich admits he knew his nephew tinkered but didn't realize his reputation. Nordhoff says kids are getting smarter these days and encourages Rich to have faith. Rich notices a red letter in one of the boxes addressed to him. Nordhoff leaves, and Rich sits at his desk as Seth blasts his electric guitar upstairs. He yells for Seth to stop so he can work, then asks where his wife is. Seth shouts back that she's at bingo, barely audible over the music. The music stops as Rich turns on the processor, which instructs him to insert the diskette and hit execute. Rich opens the red envelope and follows the instructions. A message appears, "Happy birthday, Uncle Richard," from Jonathan. Rich smiles, realizing he'd forgotten his birthday, and so had his wife and son. The text prints out on the printer beside the processor. He recalls Jonathan fixing his typewriter and insisting he get a word processor, claiming he could sense the typewriter would be gone soon. Rich joked that he better start building one for him. Jonathan smiled and said he didn't have much time, hinting, in hindsight, that he knew something would happen. Rich starts experimenting, typing "my brother was a worthless drunk," then backspacing to write, "my brother married the woman I loved," picturing Belinda in his mind. Seeing a photo of his wife snaps him back to reality. He continues typing, "My wife's picture is on the bookcase in my study," joking that he wants to move it. He hits execute, "done" appears, and the photo vanishes. Shocked, he types that it should return, execute. The photo reappears. Realizing the processor works, he eagerly begins testing. He types that 12 Spanish doubloons should appear on his floor and hit execute. "Done" flashes on the screen, and a bag of gold coins appears. Excited, he weighs them upstairs. Checking the newspaper, he sees the coins are worth over $24,000. The phone rings, and it's Nordhoff. He called to check if the processor works. Rich confirms, saying it works in ways he wouldn't believe. He invites Nordhoff over, but Nordhoff, already knowing the truth, warns Rich to be careful, as it could have unforeseen consequences, then hangs up abruptly. Rich returns downstairs, typing, "I have ideas for 10 best-selling novels," changing it to 20. Seth blasts his guitar, blowing the fuses and cutting the power. Rich flips the breaker, sits, and complains. Seth starts up again. Resentful, Rich types Seth's name and hits delete. "Done" flashes. The guitar stops. Seth disappears from the family photo. Rich calls upstairs, chuckles, and says, "Deleted." Lena returns from bingo, and Rich imagines her reaction, screaming, accusing him of loving Jonathan more, asking why he murdered their son. Rich explains he didn't murder Seth, he just deleted him. A knock at the door snaps reality back. It's Lena, holding a turkey from her bingo winnings. They talk briefly. Curious, Rich tests the processor. He asks if she remembers Seth, jokingly probing if she regrets not having kids. Lena laughs, saying what would she do with a rugrat. She asks if the machine works. Rich coyly says no and remarks it's just nice he was remembered on his birthday. Lena, insufferable as ever, says if he wishes for anything, it should be money, and walks away. Rich laughs and returns downstairs. Finally fed up, Rich types Lena's name and hits delete. The processor smokes and overheats. He tries one last request, living with Belinda and their son Jonathan. Execute fails repeatedly. Rich persists until the machine bursts into flames. Right before the screen blows out, done flashes. Smoke fills the room. Rich escapes and runs into Jonathan, who apologizes for using shoddy components. Rich smiles proud, saying it was thoughtful, but he doesn't need it anymore. Jonathan says his mom is making hot chocolate. The camera pans to reveal Belinda, who's holding a mug looking like she just walked out of a Folgers coffee commercial from the 80s, with the ending credits mostly covering her up as the screen fades to black. When it comes to the word processor of the gods, this episode leans into smart storytelling and low-tech trickery rather than flashy effects. It's one of the rare Tales from the Darkside episodes adapted from an actual Stephen King short story. The story was originally published in Playboy in 1983 and later collected in Skeleton Crew, giving the show some genuine horror fantasy prestige right out of the gate. Instead of monsters or gore, the episode plays like a twisted fairy tale. It's a story about desire, regret, and rewriting reality with nothing more than a keyboard. Even though the word processor itself looks like a hodgepodge of parts, basically a homemade computer cobbled together from scrap electronics, that ragtag machine vibe is part of the charm. It feels believable in-universe, like something a brilliant but underappreciated teen genius might actually build in his basement. Bruce Davison, who plays the unhappy writer Richard Hagstrom, was already a well-established actor long before this TV role. He appeared in the cult classic film Willard back in 1971, later won awards for dramatic work like Longtime Companion, and even popped up in major films like X-Men, where he played the anti-mutant politician, Senator Kelly. Some viewers even call Word Processor of the Gods a modern computerized spin on the Twilight Zone episode titled It's a Good Life, which itself was later remade in the 1983 Twilight Zone movie. I covered it last year, and I'll place it as a suggested video, just in case you guys want to watch it next. But that's all I got for you in this one. I want to give a special thank you to our channel members, and as always, thank you all for watching. Take care, have a great week, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.